utilize nuclear bombs.
We the best music.
Josiah Pike.
Oh, Josiah.
We must stop the terror. I call upon all nations.
Cougar 95.1. With Josiah.
Then he came over to me and said, "Now, how are you feeling?"
Oh, hey, can we play that? Can we play that on the radio? I don't know. I mean, I think I need to check with someone about it. But welcome. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is the Josiah Show. We are back. We are back after, what has it been, like 5 months now? 5 months we've been gone? Thank you for tuning into the show, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And we are back. This is a new intro. I didn't have this last time when I was doing the show. It's been 5 months. What you knew about the old show, forget about that now, because we're going in a completely different direction here, if you know what I mean. Thank you. I hope you're able to hear all that, because that intro was amazing. That was a beautiful intro. This is the Josiah Show on KUGR. I am back. This used to be But First with Josiah Pike. If you remember, if you were listening then, and if you weren't listening then, I don't blame you, because what was this, months ago? Feels like years ago at this point. It was 5 months ago, April of 2024, when I did my last show, and things have been going pretty good, since then. I had a pretty good summer. We'll get to that later on in the show, but thank you for listening. The show is going to be very different from this point on than it was before. But first of all, I just want to say, again, thank you all for listening. I appreciate it. Seriously, I mean, I want to just say thank you to all. Give yourself a round of applause, those at home, Yeah, there you go. There you go, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening to the show. And from this point on, I want to specify a few of the changes. It was, if you were listening back in April, it was But First with Josiah Pike was the name of the show. In fact, hold on, let me just adjust the mic real quick so you can hear me a little bit better. Probably should have had that a bit louder from the beginning. There we go. That should be good to my calculations here. That's what you want to call looking at the meters. That's my calculations here. Now, I want to say thank you for listening. And that amazing intro you just heard, we're gonna be playing different versions of the intro, as they're made, because we're not made by machines, or these are made by people, all right, or one guy who I want to give credit to in just a minute. But yeah, since April, as you know, the show But First with Josiah Pike, if you were listening, that was my show on KUGR back then. I'm that guy, and if you remember what the basic premise of the show was mostly just based on, it was majority music. Playing music that I just felt like playing for most of the show, and then every, half hour or so, if I remember correctly, I would come in to discuss something of some importance, a lot of times of no importance, but just something I wanted to talk about. And that was the show. This time we're doing the show completely different. First of all, I changed the name. I'm just calling it the Josiah Show now. I don't want to call it the Josiah Pike Show because that sounds too official, so it's just my first name, all right? Like Ellen, except for hopefully funnier, and I don't have any employees I'm going to slap around or anything like that. So, this is going to be a fun show, I think. And this one's more just based on talk. There's not going to be a lot of music played. Although, I don't know, I don't want to make any strong commitments, because I feel like within a week or so, I'm just going to break them and just do whatever I want. So, unfortunately, I'm not going to make a lot of commitments. But we're not going to be coming in every few minutes with music. I'm just going to be talking the majority of the show. Or actually, not just me, as I'm going to get to in a second. But it's going to be mostly a talk-based radio show now, discussing things either in the news or just things I want to talk about. It's my show. I can say whatever I want within the FCC guidelines. And, who's going to stop me? It's my show. So I want to introduce two people before I talk about some more in-depth, some of the more of the changes we're going to have to the show. I want to introduce two people who I want to give a shout-out to, who are going to be pretty big parts of the new version of the show. And to introduce it, first of all, I want to introduce the guy who made the intro you just listened to. That was I would play it again, actually, but I don't want to. I actually X'd out of it, and I'm not pulling it back up right now. I don't have the energy for that. But I want to give a shout out to the guy who made that intro, a guy who is going to be somewhat of a co-host on this show, at least when he feels like it. And in case you can tell already, because I'm the only one talking, I'm the only one here right now, so unfortunately, you're just going to have to deal with me for this episode. But the guy who I want to introduce is a man, a myth, a legend, a genius, I would call him. ladies and gentlemen, please give it up at home if you're listening to this. Please give it up for Jack Kircher, ladies and gentlemen. Here, let me just, once again, man. He's the man who made that beautiful, beautiful intro. You know, I didn't even ask him to do that. He just made it out of the blue, you know, just for fun. I told him about the show, and in something like 15 minutes, he made that. Can you believe that? And, you know, it's kind of one of those, I was actually visiting him once, and I saw he made basically a second intro, all but just the parts where he speaks in it, but out of the clips and the beat and all that, just out of the blue. You know, it took him like 15 minutes ago. He worked on it like he was, like if you saw Forrest Gump when he builds the gun in like 10 seconds, he made that like fresh off the dome. Like I would have thought he would have needed some preparation for it, but no, he just made that thing quick. So good for him. He's a friend of mine, a good friend of mine. I used to live with him, and he's a good man. He's a very good guy. He made that intro, like I said, and he's a funny guy. He's gonna be, once I told him, you know, back in September or October of 2023 when I got my first show that I was gonna do a radio show, and I was thinking about asking him to be on the show, but I don't even think I had to say anything, and he was just saying like, I'll be on it if you want. So I appreciate big shout out to him, shout out to his family, shout out to, you know, everyone involved. Shout out to Jack, a hero and a legend, for making that intro. He made it. I don't think I could have paid someone to make a better intro than that, you know. So that was great. He completely got it. And luckily he didn't put in anything that would violate the show's you know, FCC violation. So we're good. We're not going to get thrown off the air for playing that intro, you know. Hopefully, I don't know. Maybe maybe we'll see what happens, but maybe if enough people start listening to that intro and their heads start exploding from how, you know, beautiful it is, maybe then they'll throw me off. But until then, we're good. So thank you for that intro. And he wasn't able to be here on this first episode, which I know, okay, maybe that makes me look like a liar, like there aren't going to be people here, but I'm planning to have him on. The show's going to work better, I think, when there's people discussing it. But this episode, you just got me, unfortunately. And, you know, you don't get to meet the guy who made that intro, but you will eventually. He's a good guy. He's a guy who I feel in the same way where I think, you know, I think I'm funny. You know, I mean, I've had this show for a while, you know, and I'm trying to make it funny. Maybe you've never laughed at it, but I thought it was funny. In the same way where I think I'm funny, he is basically, I think we operate on the same brain length or brain wave or whatever you want to call it, to where, you know, whatever I'm thinking of, he thinks of it first, and when it comes to the goofs and the jokes. So, you know, he's going to be fun. He's going to be a great, good guy to add to the show. And so shout out to him. Thank you for that beautiful intro. And he's got some more. Unfortunately, my only problem is, I mean, I'm going to have to re-listen to the whole thing again to know for sure what happened. But I was worried at first I mixed it too loudly when I started talking, which is why I basically repeated all the information again that I said right at the beginning. But we'll learn for next time. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll see. Maybe it was fine. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. So the next person I want to give a shout out to is another guy who's going to be on the show pretty soon, and that guy is another good friend of mine who I actually lived with at the same time I lived with Jack here at school. And this guy, he didn't make an intro, so, you know, maybe that's why he's introduced second. No, actually, I'm just getting to this whenever I feel like it. But another guy, please give it up at home for Mikey Williams, everybody. Mikey Williams. Give it up for him. Give it up for that guy. Thank you. I don't know why I'm saying thank you like they're clapping for me, but, you know, whatever. The people who are here in the studio, you can hear them. It's kind of quiet because they're behind me. I'm right behind me in the studio, but there's about 35 people here. But anyway, so he's another good guy. He's going to be on the show pretty soon. He wasn't able to make it this time, and I believe from when we talked about it, and I'm not trying to make any guarantees about what people will do or anything, but I'm just saying, when we talked about it, it seemed like week 3 or so maybe he'll be on the show, although I'll just say ahead of time, because I'm planning this whole thing out, week 3 will be, 2 weeks from now. I'm actually not going to be doing the show 2 weeks from today. I'm going to be out of town, but 3 weeks from today, maybe that'll work, but we'll see. So he's another good guy. He's pretty funny as well. And I'm having these guys on because, you know, I'm already, I guess, setting people up for disappointment for the next 2 hours. But the show is going to be a lot better, I think, in the next few weeks. We're going to have a few different people on. And not just them, I'm planning on actually having more people on as guests to come in and talk about whatever topics we're talking about here. And it's gonna work pretty good. So, you know, please stay tuned for that. That's gonna be good. And they agreed to be on the show a little while when I talked about getting the show back for this semester. So, you know, thank you to them for doing that. and we're gonna see him pretty soon. I'm sure Jack's gonna have some more tricks up his sleeve for you people to listen to, like he did that intro. I can't wait to play it again. Maybe I'll tune us. I'm thinking about if I can time it right. I'll kind of tune out the show with the ending beat of the intro. But I don't know. That's a lot of work for right now. But maybe I will. But anyway, we got a lot to talk about in this show. I'm gonna go into more depth on some of the changes to the show from last year. Talk about kind of recapping what's happened over the summer. So not really in the news, but just what's been going on with me. And if we have time, we're gonna be talking about. Well, we'll have time for at least one of these. But about seeing the recent Despicable Me movie, which I know doesn't sound very interesting, but there's a huge story behind that I thought was pretty funny that we're going to get to within the next 2 hours. Or hour and 15 minutes, however much longer I have left at this point. So some of the change we made to the show, as I said, I changed the name because I guess I never really explained it, and it's not like I ever had to, but the show was called But First with Josiah Pike from October to April, so 6 months or so. And that was because the name kind of just came from when I was doing the show. The idea was to play, however so many songs, and then every once in a while I would cut in, almost like saying, but for like it's a long commercial break because the music's what you want to listen to. Cutting with like a long commercial break, but first, and then I start talking about things. I never said but first like that would have been pretty funny, if it was meant to kind of be like going completely with the theme. But I don't like scripting things, so I never did that. But that was the idea of the show right at the beginning. Now things have changed a bit to where I don't really feel like playing music anymore. I've outgrown that now. So we won't be playing a lot of music from this point on. So I'm just calling it the Josiah Show because I don't know what else to call it. That name is up for interpretation. I might change it. But I really doubt I'm going to. Because, like I said, I'm trying to pull the Ellen Show. Because that was the official name of her show, I believe. Everyone just called it Ellen, but it was the Ellen Show, I think. But I'm taking a page from the book of Ellen, which I really shouldn't do, and I'm not going to do for anything else, and just calling it that. So the name's not important. We can call it whatever. I'm just talking about the most minimal things here. But aside from that, I'm hoping to do more content based around either comedy in terms of bits. I've thought of doing some commentary on videos or like on short film, whatever, that I found on YouTube. I've kind of been making a list of things I want to kind of riff on the show, I guess, to steal from something else. Because you're going to steal from the best. And that's going to be pretty funny. It's going to be funny when I have a few different people on here, which will be in the near future. And I'm thinking about also, in terms of other things I'm going to do more interviews with people, have more people in the studio. Because if you remember correctly, I did actually only one, but I always planned to do more. An interview for Moscow Hemp Fest, I think it was, if I got the name right. Right near the end of the show. In fact, it was the second to last episode, so it felt a bit pointless for me to start trying to make changes then, but I did, and those changes are going to carry out into, the rest of the show. Because that's something I want to do more of, interviewing people around campus who have something interesting to say. Going out and doing more interviews with just members of the general public around campus. That's something I think would be fun to do on the show. That's one of the things that's going to take up a lot of time. And I'm thinking as well, just in general, if I do play music, I like to play music from people who are maybe lesser known. Not really that my tastes have changed, because if you remember, the show used to be I just played classic rock basically the whole time, and my taste has not changed since then. That's basically still what I like. Still basically all I listen to be honest. But if I'm going to play music, I like to play music from people who could maybe use the exposure of the, I think, 6 people who listen to this show. So that's kind of my idea. I'd like to take, if I could, calls from people out in the general public, which I think I took one during the old show. But partially that's because for a while it seemed like I think there was a problem with the phone. In fact, I know there was a problem with the phone here, so I wasn't really able to. I'd like to do that more often, but I honestly really don't know if that's resolved or not, so I can't right at the moment. But, if I can, I'm going to, but we'll have to see what happens. This episode I'm not going to because I really just don't feel like it. And you know what? The reason I never really gave the phone number before, in part, was because it's kind of freaky to be just kind of sitting here in a studio by myself in a building that is not completely empty, but feels like it's mostly by myself. And the phone rings and I have to take. The chances are, considering how many people listen to the show, that there's like at least a 50% chance that it's going to be someone calling to, threaten my life or something. So I don't want to do that. But maybe another time I'll give the number. In fact, another time I will give the number because I do want to take some more calls. But we're just gonna have to see when that is. Okay, don't hassle me. And also, another change I wanted to make to the show was I wanted to do a lot. I wanted to talk maybe less about what's in the. Not that it's not interesting, but I wanted to talk more about things that I was actually kind of more interested in, which is what we're gonna do from this point on. Although I did like the show, frankly, the old show. It seems like I'm just kind of talking about a lot of things I didn't like or want to do differently. I still listen. I think I was pretty spot on with a lot of the stuff I said when I was giving my opinions on stuff on the show back in the good old days. 5 months ago, nearly a year ago when it started. So I don't want to completely change, but these are just some of the things I would like to do differently. And beyond that, I think when talking about the show, I think something else I'd like to do is when I do talk about things that are in the news, I think it would be best to talk about things that are, big enough that I kind of have to talk about. Like I plan to probably talk about the election for the show after the election. That's probably going to be the main thing that's being talked about, however that goes. I don't really know for sure how much. I mean, I guess it's one of the only big events happening right now. In the entire world, that's all that's happening. But I'm planning to talk about that because that's going to be, that's going to be fun. The election's probably not going to be that fun. I don't know. Board up your doors and your windows, I guess, in preparation because no matter what happens, there's going to be trouble, unfortunately. But the talking about it's going to be fun. So it'll be kind of fun if maybe this show airs on Thursdays. So the election's on a Tuesday. So maybe by Thursday, the Civil War will already begin. That'll be fun, to cover a historical piece of audio to bring out eventually when we're talking about what happened to America. And oh yeah, speaking of Thursday, that reminds me of probably the biggest change I have at this point on the show, which is that basically the show has changed time slots dramatically. It's not, if you listen to the show before, I'm sorry to tell you, and you're looking for where to find it now, I'm sorry to tell you, but we changed very dramatically when the show was aired to where I'm kind of afraid of losing a big chunk of the audience because they don't know when to find it anymore. So the old show aired for 2 hours and was on Thursdays from 6 to 8, and we changed the time to Thursdays from 5 to 7. I know that's like a big change, and I don't know if you can get used to it, but please do. In all honesty, though, if you were listening for the show, I'm sure you would find it somehow. You're looking for it, but that's maybe not all that many people are looking for it. I guess that's another problem. But hey, if you want to listen to it, we're showing it we're playing at a different time now, so get used to that. Get adjusted to it. And now moving on since that's pretty much all the main changes from the show, I'd like to, if I missed anything, maybe I'll cover it later on, but really the biggest change is playing less music and just focusing more on talking as we want to do. Because we're playing, at least hour, 2 hours before the show and probably after the show, it's just music without any talking. So, I'm sure it wouldn't be that hard to adjust to, right? I mean, if it is, then I'm sorry. Well, I'm sure we'll be off the air soon anyway, so don't worry about it. So moving right along then, we're going to be talking about basically what's been going on in the past 5 months. I don't mean the news or anything, because again, nothing. What happened in the news the past 5 months? It was pretty quiet, right? Nothing. I don't know. But the past 5 months for me, what's just been going on with me, because that's what you're listening to the show for. So the show ended in April of 2024. And it was really crazy because I came back into the studio, and this is the first time I've been in the studio, or really all that close to it since the show ended. And it was kind of weird because 5 months ago, it feels like I know I'm being sarcastic when saying nothing happened. It feels like a lifetime ago at this point. Okay, that's an exaggeration. It feels like maybe a year ago at this point to me, how long ago April 2024 was. Because, a lot happened then. It feels like it was longer than it was. So it was a bit weird kind of adjusting to realizing it was not really all that long ago when you think about it. But when I came in here, it felt like it was 5 minutes ago when I did that last show. I still remember when I did that last show. If you remember, I closed the last few minutes with saying goodbye and thanking everyone for listening, everyone who did listen. Being all emotional, crying. Well, that's a lie in case you weren't listening. I didn't cry at it. Only a little bit. But it was a nice send-off, I thought. And I remember thinking at the time, this is the last show, because it felt so long until I would be back. It felt so long, and now we're here. So, which is a bit of a weird feeling. Now we're back, and it's the cycle repeats itself, because when you think about it, it was October something when I did my first show ever, and we're nearly there at this point. I mean, the next show is going to be in October, so we're basically there. but the cycle keeps going like one of those, something that spins, spins, it goes in a circle like a wheel or something. But anyway, so 5 months ago I left the show, and that was pretty much the end of the school year because I think the next day was the last day of classes. And I was a junior then. I'm a senior now, which is kind of weird to think about. Time moving linearly. That's a foreign concept. But the last day of in-person classes was the day after the last show. And then in about 6 days, so a week since the last show, was graduation, at least for the seniors, and for the class I went to. And I went to that, and it was pretty. I mostly went because I knew a lot of people who were graduating. Most of my friend group, I feel like, in fact, nearly all of them, besides, well, frankly, the people who I just mentioned, and a few other exceptions, were among that class. So I felt it only right to go and pay my respects to the departed. Although they're not dead, but just gone out of my life for a while. And that was nice, to say goodbye to everyone. I mean, say goodbye to them from a distance because you can't really find specific people in a crowd of 200 people, 2,000 people probably. But saying goodbye to everyone, that was a nice time. And then that was it for a while in terms of thinking about anything because it's the summer, and all you really want to do is, if you're going to get a job to make some more money, that's one thing. But then just kind of sleep all day, basically think about anything but the radio show. Despite how much I like doing it, thinking about anything but the radio show because that's the only break you're going to get there. So when trying to think about what I did, the main thing I guess was maybe not surprising. I don't even know if I ever mentioned on the show. I probably did at some point considering how much I was thinking about it. But about a week and a half after leaving school for that year, I went and saw the Rolling Stones actually when they came to Seattle. And that was the fulfillment of a dream that I had for a long time, seeing the Rolling Stones, the greatest band in the world, if they ask the guy who announces them at the beginning of every concert. And they are probably the greatest band in the world, at least, greatest living band in the world. There have been better bands in history, but, they're all dead or broken up, so, who cares? So the Rolling Stones, seeing them was pretty great. I had to get the tickets all the way back in November, although I probably could have waited maybe a little bit, but I don't know by how much because I was able to get in very early. I mean, I was refreshing the page all the time to see as soon as I could get in. And it seemed like seats were just getting taken left and right, left, right, and center. And that's not, I don't mean by where they were sitting. I just mean how fast they were getting taken. And once I gotten on there and got my tickets, chosen my seats and got my tickets, it was they were already kind of expensive. So I imagine I probably couldn't have waited that much longer. But I got the tickets, again, 6 months before the concert. And that was a pretty long 6 months. Especially, again, when you think about all the stuff that happened in that 6 months. But it felt like a pretty long 6 months waiting to go see them. And then I did. So it was in Seattle at the Lumen Field, if I have it correct. In fact, yes, that was what it was. And it was always nice. It was kind of I've seen a few different classic rock stars. So again, that's all I really listened to. And, that's when music peaked. So, why would you listen to anything else? That's just a joke. Of course, there are other good genres as well, but classic rock is where it's at, in case you don't listen to it already. And I went to see the Rolling Stones, and as I was saying, when you go to see any of these classic rock stars, it's nice to see how many fans show up, and you're not really surprised by how many fans there are because they're big groups or a big performer or something like that. But it's kind of surprising. It's not surprising, but it's something it's nice to see how many people show up and are clearly excited to be there, wearing their shirts and. I guess I'm just describing a person wearing clothes, but they're shirts that have the logos on them, and they're singing the song, having a good time. And that was pretty exciting. And I think the Rolling Stones, out of any of the concerts I've ever been to, had the biggest crowd, which, again, it probably isn't surprising. They're the greatest rock band in the world, so yeah, of course they've got a big crowd going to see them. And it was a lot of fun, to finally get in there and, get ready to go see them. But I remember when we got there, it was about 6 p.m., So, and they went on at 8, if I remember. So there was kind of a 2-hour period of just kind of waiting. Although there was stuff to do. They had food and drinks and all that stuff. And they had an opener, although the opener was Who Came Out at 8. So it was kind of a long wait, but that's all right, I guess. And so at around 8, the opener came on, who was, and I'm going to completely say his name wrong, I'm sure, but Joe Bonamassa, I think was, in fact, let me just double check here because I want to make sure I get it right. And I was wondering when I first heard about the Rolling Stones having an opener for the concert, who it might be, because they've had a lot of, crazy people open for them. I mean, they've had I think Metallica opened for them before, used to open for them. Kanye West opened for them. I mean, that's not something they want to brag about right now, but the Rolling Stones tours, they have a lot of people who open for them, big names who open for them. So it was cool to know that they were going to have that again. And so, yeah, Joe Bonamassa is the name of the guitar player. And I may still be saying that wrong, but that is his name. And he's a guitarist, in case you didn't know. I mean, I didn't really know of him before this, no offense to the guy personally. But he was a guitarist, and he did a good job. Although the only problem is I don't really know what was going on there. But there was some sort of mistake with the audio, I felt like, where it was kind of, I don't know, the acoustics or something like that. I don't know what was going on, but it was kind of hard to hear what he was saying or make out what he was saying. You could hear him, but there were kind of some parts where he broke in for a second and started talking about, whatever. I mean, whatever he wanted to talk about in between songs. And it was kind of sad because I'm sure it would have been nice to hear it, but you could only hear the occasional. It's one of those things where you only really hear words that you know what they are or you're waiting to hear. Like when he mentioned the Rolling Stones and when he mentioned his own name. I mean, it kind of came across like, if I can simulate it, it was almost like he was saying, Joe Bonamassa, the Rolling Stone, and just kind of going on like that for a while. And when we could make out the words, we all clapped because they were cool. I mean, like I said, I didn't really know that much about the guy beforehand, but when he said his name, we all clapped, and then when he said the Rolling Stones, we all clapped. So those were some good times. I remember he was, maybe I shouldn't be surprised, but if I remember correctly, not trying to slander the guy, but he did drop the F-bomb at one point. That's not, it's a family-friendly event, so that's probably not good. I'm just joking. Really, I'm saying I shouldn't be surprised because I think a lot of people look at some of these classic rock musicians like the Rolling Stones as, they got to be clean for the kiddies who came, family-friendly, all that. And I don't think there was an age limit on the tickets, so maybe that's partially why, but I've seen the Rolling Stones swear before. I was ready for it. I mean, I couldn't have played that on the air, which is a bit of a bummer if I recorded that. But that's okay, I guess I'll get over it. But moving on from that, it was nice to see him. He did a good job. He went on for a lot longer than I thought he would, which was the only thing where it's not like an insult to the guy, but I kind of wish maybe he could have cut it down a little bit. I think it went on for something like 40 minutes, something like that. But whatever. I mean, they were all good. I don't remember the songs by name. I mean, no offense to the guy personally, but he did a good job. He was a good guitarist. He sang during it as well, if I remember correctly. I just can't comment on that as much because I couldn't hear him all that well because of whatever was going on with the microphone setup. But anyway, so after about 40 minutes, he got off the stage. And the only thing, and I know I keep being critical, I feel like, but if I can just criticize one other thing, I feel like maybe they weren't ready or something, but it would have been nice if the Stones kind of came out a little bit earlier because I think it was like 30 minutes before they came out. Another 30 minutes, 20 minutes maybe, if I'm being generous. 30 minutes if I'm being realistic. And I feel like maybe they could have cut that down just, a little bit. Maybe just a little bit. I don't know, something like just a little bit. But that's not, I don't know what they were doing back there. Maybe it was really important. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they need to get a little lit before they came out. It helps the artistic process. So I guess I can't blame them too hard. Like whatever, I'm not them. I can't speak for them. So I'm glad they eventually did come out. And of course, as you would imagine, I mean, by that point, the sun had set, which was kind of weird because it was hot and bright outside when we got there. But by that point, that was no more. The sun had set and people were a bit tired, I felt like, considering how long, we had been there and how kind of late it was. But as soon as they came out, or as soon as you knew they were coming out, people were just standing up and cheering and clapping and, passing out and all that. And it was great. That's always one of probably the best moment in any of these concerts, in my opinion, when the band or the person, whoever first comes out, because everyone's just, hyped as hell. And they did a kind of a cool thing where they, since the tour, I think the official name is the Hackney Diamonds Tour or something like that. They put on the screens the diamond kind of breaking apart in their silhouettes, and you can look it up on YouTube, I'm sure, if you haven't seen it already. I imagine most people haven't seen it already. And they kind of break through, and they come on stage, and they're running around, I mean, looking pretty good for a bunch of guys who are 80 now. And, everyone was clapping, cheering, yelling for them, and it was, it was great. I mean, it was probably what it was like to see the Beatles live or whatever, 60 years ago. And so the concert itself was pretty good. I've heard some people actually say, I know another guy who went to it who said that the sound quality wasn't the best for the Stones either. I actually didn't really have a problem with the sound quality for the Stones because Mick spoke a few times in between songs. Keith did as well. And you could hear what they were saying, or at least I could understand what they were saying. And you could understand the words better for this, although partially that's because, and again, I mean no offense to Joe Bonamassa, but I didn't know the words to any of the songs he was playing. I knew the words pretty well for most of the songs the Stones did, so maybe it's just because, again, you're listening for the words, you can make them out better. But moving on from that, the Stones I thought they did a great job. I thought the sound quality was good. Mick Jagger had, as everyone kind of knows, who knows anything about him, had, a great amount of energy. He was running around, yelling, dancing, just like he did, again, 60 years ago. And it was great. I think that the thing with him that was kind of interesting was he changes outfits a lot, and that's something where I guess maybe because I've never been to a Rolling Stones concert before, I've never seen a full Rolling Stones concert before this, so maybe I just didn't know. In fact, I know I just didn't know, but maybe this is why. I was kind of surprised he seemed to change outfits a lot. Like he would kind of put something like a coat on, or he'd take his coat off, or maybe I'm misremembering it, but I think at one point he went backstage for a bit because Keith did a song at one point, so Mick wasn't really needed for that, and when he came back, he was dressed differently. And, I kind of liked it. That was kind of cool that he would do that. But I was thinking, if you want to I was thinking, like, you might want to conserve your energy a little bit. I'm just being polite. I'm not trying to call him old or anything. I'm just trying to be polite and look out for the guy. I was thinking, hey, maybe you want to conserve your energy just a little bit. But I didn't seem to bother him. He was doing fine. So, great job to Mick. He did amazing on that. Still has an extremely strong voice, and to kind of compare it, maybe not the best for this other person, but to compare it in a sort of a positive way for Mick, Paul McCartney's another guy I saw live, and that was a really great concert as well because Paul McCartney, I've thought about, and if you notice from how many like Beatles songs and Wings songs and all that I've played, he's probably, I think, my favorite artist of like any kind ever. He's just a genius. Everyone already kind of knows he's a genius, but I feel like I need to kind of reinforce that he is a genius, and not to be rude to the guy at all, but his voice is clearly not the same as it was even 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. And that's to be expected when you get to 82 or however old he is now. So it's not an insult to the guy. And you should still go see his concert if you're even thinking about it. And you have the means to do it because it's going to be a great experience whether or not his voice sounds great. When he does all the classic Beatles songs and when he does all his own songs, it's great. But it's not exactly the same. The Stones, honestly, they showed extremely little signs of aging, at all, I thought. Mick, I think once in a while would, drink some water. But his voice was you could tell he's older, but it was on point completely, I thought. I think Keith, the one thing, and I've heard other people say this as well, Keith looked a little bit shaky right when he came out. Not to be rude to the guy, but he looked a little bit maybe, disoriented. I didn't hear any problem with his guitar playing, and he got with it pretty quick, and when he did his song, it was great. And, you could hear him, you could make out what he was saying. But I just thought, if we're going to be fair, just for the record there, I'll put that out there. But yeah, they all did a great job. Ron Wood did a great job. I guess people maybe mention him the least just because he's not one of the originals, so there's always not as much to compare always. But he did great too. The way they set up at Lumen Field, since they didn't have the roof on the stadium or anything like that. Although I guess, I don't know, can Lumen Field's roof close? I honestly don't even know for sure. For content, in case anyone's listening to this who isn't already familiar with the Seahawks or Lumen Field or anything, I don't know if they've ever really shown. Whenever I've seen a Seahawks game, it's been outdoors, or it's been during the daytime where there's no rain or snow or anything like that. So I guess I don't know if there's ever even been a need. I'm sure in the history of the game there's been a need at some point, but I never really seen the roof close. So I don't know. Can it close? I don't know. But anyway, the point I was making was the roof was open. It was still dark outside when the Stones were playing, and they had the stage set out where I think the term is the runway or the runway on the stage where there's a part of it that protrudes out to the audience. Mick came down it a lot. Keith came down it a few times. Ron Wood came down it a lot too. So good for them all. They did a great job with that. Coming down and exciting everyone because everyone starts cheering and yelling and all that when they come down. I'm always kind of weird when I see them do that, though, because I always wonder if someone's going to throw something at them. Not in a super violent way, more just again, I keep bringing this up, at 60 years ago when they did that, when all the girls were screaming and, that you could barely hear what they were saying. I mean, someone probably might have thrown like their underwear at Mick or something and said like, "Can you sign it and throw it back?" I mean, I'm sure that's happened multiple times. So I was kind of worried if some like 80-year-old woman was gonna try that when Mick came down this time. And if I was there, maybe I would have tried that. I don't know, but no one did, if I remember correctly. So good for them. I think at one point he took off his coat or whatever and like just left it in the middle of the runway. But I'm sure someone got to it. And again, maybe I'm misremembering the things, but he was taking off clothes a lot during that. That sounds bad. I don't mean it like that. I just mean, he would often take off his jacket, go put on another jacket, take it off again, and I felt bad for whoever was going to be picking him up in between songs, especially because you have to go out there when maybe they're going to start performing in just a second, or maybe they're talking about whatever, and you have to go out there and just pick it up and walk back. But, I mean, if there's money in it, then why not? But the concert they did great. This Mick, I think I kind of alluded to this earlier, but he swore a few times just talking to people about whatever. So, that's for all the kids who were there to see a rock group from the 60s. I'm sure they were pretty upset and scarred for life even. So maybe someone needs to feel ashamed of themselves for that one. But it seemed all right. And the concert, by the end of it, I'm trying to remember specific songs they played. I think they closed with Satisfaction, although maybe I'm wrong. I know they played it at some point. They played not as many songs you would think from this recent album, actually, Hackney Diamonds. I don't know how many people have heard it. I've talked about, in fact, that was only the second topic I ever talked about on this show. If you remember, the first topic I ever talked about was the house, Speaker of the House thing, because, this is long enough to go to when that was happening, if anyone remembers the details of that. And the second topic I ever talked about was Hackney Diamonds when it was like announced. And so they didn't play as many songs from that as you might think, but I think they played 2 or 3, and those were nice to hear. I think some people were wondering if like Stevie Wonder or Lady Gaga or someone who played on the album was going to come out, and they never, or even like Bill Wyman, and no one ever did. Although I wasn't really expecting it. I mean, I figured if it was going to happen, it would happen in like New York or LA or one of the cities that people seem to care about. It's not going to happen in Seattle, I'm sorry to say. As much as we'd like it to, it wasn't going to happen. So that was all. It was just the Stones and some of their backup singers they kind of had there. But that's enough. That's enough people. And that's basically the thrust of it. The concert, by the time it was over, it was all, everyone had a good time. I think, I don't know. Again, some people didn't like the sound quality, which is understandable, but I personally had a great time. I would see them again if they came back, which I don't know, because I think the last time they came here was something like 2019, maybe even earlier than that, like 2017, maybe even. So if they're going to come back, at least in the near future, probably not. At some point, maybe. At some point, I hope they'll come back, and I would see them again. I mean, even if it's, again, since they didn't play a lot of songs on the new album, even if it's like the same thing again, I would still like to see it. But we'll see, We'll see. And so moving right along, that was probably the biggest thing that happened during the summer. In fact, it definitely was for me. I'm trying to think, I didn't write a list of what I was going to mention from this past summer. So I'm trying to just think of what else would be good to talk about. I mean, there were other things that happened, but that was definitely the main one. Like I said, it was kind of the fulfillment of a dream I had for a while to go see the Stones. But yeah, no, I guess I don't want to make it sound like nothing happened, but that was the main exciting thing that happened. So I hope you enjoyed maybe hearing a little bit about it. And if you're curious, look it up. I'm sure there are videos of it, and there must be videos of it out there, of the Rolling Stones Hackney Diamonds tour in Seattle at Lumen Field in 2024 on May 15th. If you search it exactly that way, I don't know, maybe you'll find it. But anyway, moving along, if I think of anything else I might want to talk about in the last 5 months, then I will talk about it. But until then, I'm just going to move on to what else I had planned to talk about. I wanted to mention a little bit about, as I said earlier, the Despicable Me 4, and why I'm going to talk about that. Well, for a few reasons. First of all, on the show, again, back in, I think it was, there's a lot of, references to the show. If you're taking notes at home, there's a lot of references to past shows today. But there's a reference to a past show I did back in January. The first show I did actually after the show was back from its first break that I was ever on, which was for the winter break. I talked about how 2024 movies look like they're going to suck. And Despicable Me 4 was one of the movies I talked about then. And, I mean, I don't know. Was I wrong on that? I mean, who knows? I mean, Now looking at it, it looks like probably not. Although I'll get into it because I've seen the movie now. But I'll just put it this way: I'm batting 1-0 so far. So the Pharrell Williams Lego movie better look out. So, but what I want to talk about, I'm not going to just talk about it because I've seen the movie now. I know what it was like. I wanted to talk about it because there's kind of an interesting story about it. How I kind of me and a group of people, two of the people among that group of people are those I mentioned right at the beginning of the show who will be joining me soon. Because we have kind of an interesting story with that. We saw the movie, and we didn't just want to see the movie. We just saw it because if we're gonna see it, we gotta make it like a spectacle out of it. So we saw the movie dressed as Gru and the Minions. That was pretty cool. And to explain why, so going into like lore of my life, back around, I think it must have been October of 2022 when I first met, or I met some of these guys, Jack and Mikey. I met even before that, but the first October I knew these guys, nearly 2 years ago. The idea came up. I don't even remember how it happened, but for Halloween, dressing up as Gru and the Minions, and that's just a funny idea because first of all, in my opinion, since only one person could be Gru, everyone else is gonna have to basically be the same costume, which isn't a big deal to me. But that means that I want to be Gru. I don't remember if I volunteered to be Gru or if someone said I should be Gru. I don't know, but that was who I was, and that was our idea for Halloween. And also, because WSC was going to be showing in the auditorium Minions 2. And if I never talked about that before, that movie sucks. But I hadn't seen it by that point, and we decided we were going to go see that. In fact, it was even later. It was sometime in November, so it was past Halloween. And I'm not going to dress up and go out getting candy for Halloween. But at the same time, if I'm going to go out for Halloween dressed as... if I'm going to go out for Halloween doing anything, I want to be in a costume for it. So... it was time. I decided to get a Gru costume, which basically was a black hoodie without a hood, so whatever that would make it, and one of those black and gray scarves, and a bald cap. So it must have been. I think for Halloween, I just decided to wear the black hoodie and the scarf, if I did even do anything for that, because I'm not gonna. The bald cap I saw as a one-time use thing, because I know nothing about makeup or putting anything like that on, so I don't know if I could have reused it, and I still don't know if I could have reused it, but I saw it as a one-time thing, so if I'm going to wear it, then I might as well save it for when I'm going to wear it in public, which is to the movie, when we dress up for that. So I just dressed up as Gru with hair, I guess, which actually worked okay, because in that movie, Gru's like 6 or something, and he has hair. I don't know, I'm just guessing here. So it actually worked okay for that. If I wanted to be smart, I could have said the real reason I didn't wear the bald cap is for that reason. But the real reason is because, I'm lazy. But I decided before we saw the movie, I figured I might as well just see how it works and what the process is to wear it. And, stupid me, I always assumed a bald cap you could just put on your head and kind of maybe, I don't know, like with makeup or something, kind of get it the same shade as your head and there you go. It looks like you were bald. But no, the color of the bald cap was like this weird yellowish, I'm trying to think of what would even be a good way to describe it, because it didn't even look anything like a skin color, at least to me. It was this weird yellowish, rubber-ish color, and I know rubber doesn't necessarily have a color, but it just when you look at it, it just looks like rubber. And so you have to put that on your head, kind of blend it with the makeup and all that, like cut parts for your ears out and all that, and it was just a huge process. And so looking at it, I realized immediately, okay, so I'm not going to be able to get this to look exactly like how I would want it to. So I'm just going to, whatever I do here, it's going to have to be a compromise, all right? But I decided what I was going to do was just put it on there, just see how it fits, the day or so before. And the cheap piece of crap that it is, and I felt like I paid I don't remember even what it was anymore, but I thought I paid a decent price for it, for it not to do this. It just breaks, snaps, rips apart, garbage. It was horrible. I hated it. And as soon as I try to put it on, I realized that this is not going to end well, because I can already feel it start to it already feels cheap. And I was being as gentle with it as I could possibly be. And I just bring that up because even with that being the case, it's still ripped. So the bald cap's a bust at this point. I realize that's not going to work. I thought maybe it would be kind of funny to try to just put it on and just see if anyone would have any sort of, want to feel bad for me, maybe give me any sympathy points or had I gone out on Halloween, given me any sympathy candy or something like that for my costume being a complete failure. But I didn't really want that public level of humiliation, so I decided we're just going to be Gru with hair, I guess. So, but that's a whole different story. I just bring that up to mention that I have this Gru costume, and we've gone as the Minions before. Or sorry, I had the Gru costume. The first time, none of the guys with me, Jack, Mikey, and another friend of mine named Doug, who I got specific permission to mention his name. We all went out and had a good time and saw the movie. It was pretty bad. No one else dressed as the Minions. I don't remember what the reason was at the time, but they just dressed as themselves. So, as cool as that is, I guess. I mean, that was pretty cool at the time. I felt like, the king who was just leading. I didn't have minions anymore. I was leading a group of people now. So it was kind of a step up, actually. But this is 2 years later, we decided we're going to go see Despicable Me 4 when it's showing at WSU. Because, of course we are. Because we've done it before for Minions 2. We got to do it for Despicable Me 4. Really had nothing to do with the fact that I talked about on the show. I kind of forgot about that until actually about yesterday when I started looking through old recordings of the show, and I figured, oh yeah, I talked about this before. So we're going to go see Despicable Me 4, and this time I'm going to be Gru, and they decided we are going to be the Minions this time. So we're all going to match. That's going to be great. And the thing is, we're not going to all buy Minion costumes, or at least I didn't really have a say in it. Not that I wanted one because it's their business and their money and all that. But we're not all going to buy Minion costumes. And I thought that was a good idea because that crap is expensive. To buy a Minion costume, use it once and never use it again. To buy 3, because Jack, Mikey, and Doug are all going to go to that. And it seems like a complete waste. So, you can always do something better yourself at home when you put in the time and the effort, if you know what I'm saying. So we decided instead what we're going to do is they're going to paint their faces yellow and paint some black goggles around their eyes. And there you go, they're Minions. Some of the Minions only have one eye, but that doesn't make a difference here. We're operating in a world where they all have 2 eyes. So they paint their faces with yellow, and it's not even like face paint. It's with this like acrylic paint, if I remember correctly. But I thought that was even better because, I figured, and I don't know anything about art or anything like that. That's what you want to call it. But I figured that's going to stay longer probably. So, it's a great idea. So I look at everyone when we're at Jack's house, and they just look amazing. I mean, they look just like I'm sorry we can't show a photo here because they look just like them. They look just like the Minions, like identical, no difference. So we're going to go to the movie after that because we're all, looks maxing, and we look great as Gru and the Minions. And as soon as we start, we all I think realized at the same time. I mean, now that we hadn't really thought about it at all before because we've been through this once before, but now that we're in a group of people dressed as Gru and the Minions, we're probably going to get noticed. And it's going to be kind of funny because I was hoping there were going to be people who would notice us, realize what we're doing here, going to a Despicable Me movie, dressed as Gru and the Minions, and kind of, congratulate us as geniuses for having this brainchild. But when we start going, I realized something. We look at the WSU SEB Instagram, because Student Entertainment Board are the ones who are putting this on. We take a look, and I realize there's a costume contest for whoever wears the best costume gets some tote bag of like stuff they don't show. And I start to be a little bit worried because I think, what if a group of people are going dressed up and they look like way better than us, and it kind of puts our costumes to shame? That would be probably the saddest thing in the history of this school, that we dressed up, we put in all this effort, and it was all for nothing. And I figured, I don't think I said this at the time, but I was thinking, if that happens, there's only really one thing you can do. We have to fight these people. We have to prove that we're the superior Despicable Me fans and start a fight. We're fans who, I keep saying the movie sucks, so we're fans who love it so much that we're willing to say we hate it. Or I'm willing to say I hate it. And I'm the only one in the whole Despicable Me fandom who's willing to just put out there that they suck, the movies. But we were hoping it wouldn't come to that because we want to be non-violent here. But then I started thinking our chances may have improved a bit because we were going to the 7 p.m. showing. There were 2 showings, one at 4 p.m. and one at 7 p.m. And the 4 p.m. showing they had a winner for the costume contest, and it was a guy in a banana suit, which I thought, well, that really has not much to do with Despicable Me, really. I mean, the thing with the Minions is they like bananas or whatever. But I figured, what are the chances that that's the best possible costume? I figured at the same time, there's very little chance that anyone's going to wear a costume better than ours if that was the winner for last. I mean, no offense to the guy. It's not a bad costume. I'm just saying it just shows that there must have been not that many people who showed up in costume. So we start going there, and we also kind of realize when people are looking at us that, or at least I realize, this would be a good time to shout some inspirational quotes to them. You know what I mean? Try to make them feel better. Because we did a similar thing. We went to see the Mario movie once, this group of people. Some of it different, but me and my friends went to see the Mario movie when that came out, dressed up as Mario and Peach, and that was pretty awesome. And we had a few people who wanted to take pictures with us actually, because it was the opening night and all that. So we let that happen, and I wanted to be a role model to these people who are about the same age as me, so I'm not really much of a role model at all. And telling them, stay in school, eat your vegetables. And I decided to pull that again here because, why I gotta make a good impression on these people. I gotta make sure that they do what they have to do. I'm dressed up as the greatest villain turned hero in fictional history, so I gotta make a good impression on these people. So we pass by people. We first all start saying things like, have a good night, and we're just trying to be nice. And then eventually I take it to the next level and start, saying, stay in school and eat your green vegetables. Those are my two favorite things to say to them, because those are the really important things in life. Because where would you be if you don't stay in school and you also don't eat your vegetables? Those are important, and the people needed to hear that. Need to hear it. In fact, everybody we passed needed to hear it. I kind of wish I filmed it because it was pretty funny. Every time we passed someone who remotely looked at us, I yelled at it. And we most of the time, they said stuff to them too around those lines. Because we're not going to harass people, We're not going to say, don't stay in school and don't eat your vegetables, because that would have been just harassment. So we have to make a good impression on these people. But eventually I decided, if I'm going to say these things to them, I might as well say something important, something I'm passionate about. So I decided, I'm going to start telling them to vote no on Prop 121. And if you're wondering what that is, well, so am I, because there is no Prop 121. I mean, there may be a Proposition 121. In fact, I'm sure there is somewhere that you need to vote on that's important or whatever. But I told people to vote no on it just because I wanted to see how people would react just being told vote certain way on some random proposition. So I told everyone vote no on Prop 121. And as is customary, most people just said, okay, they let me say my piece. And I appreciate that, not interfering, not stopping the process here of me telling them how to vote, dressed as a cartoon character. But then I realized I kind of had to think about what Prop 121 meant, because some people were telling me, some people, had the nerve to ask what that is before just agreeing to vote a certain way on it. So I told them it was a proposition related to illegal gambling laws and wanting to make sure that gambling, a real disease, more addictive than drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, that it was dead and no one gambled. I mean, full disclosure, I don't have any position on gambling propositions. I don't even know if that's actually a thing I don't even know if gambling laws are put to a vote in most states. But I decided this random ballot initiative, Prop 121, was something I had to put a stop to. And I think I did. I think I convinced a good 3 or 4 people who probably weren't going to vote anyway not to vote on Prop 121. So I did my duty. So we get to the movie theater, yelling vote no on Prop 121, and people kind of trying not to laugh all the way, which was the reaction I wanted. I don't know. I'm pretty sure some of the people there would have not wanted people to be just kind of laughing as we're going out, but I don't care. I'm on a mission here to get everyone to vote no on Prop 121, or as many people as I can to vote no on Prop 121, and also to be GRU, and I'm accomplishing both of these. So we get to the theater, and that's when I realized when I see the people there, okay, so, well, at first I'm thinking maybe we are beat out. Maybe we've met our match here, because there was a good amount of people there. But when I saw not one of them was in costume, I thought, we got this made. We're gonna win that costume contest, and that's all there is to it. I wanted to do a whole shtick where I was gonna, say what. Oh, I thought this was like a political forum or something, and pretend we didn't know I were dressed up. I thought that was pretty funny, but unfortunately, we didn't really get to go all the way with it because there were other people there, waiting to get in, and because I don't know, I kind of just lost the nerve after a while, so it didn't exactly happen how I thought it would, but I still was able to get at least the opening shtick out. But as soon as we got there, one of the first people there was someone with a camera, not like a phone camera, but like a whole, normal camera, like what we used to use. in the good old days of journalism or whatever. And when that happened, I knew that things were about to get good because I knew we were getting our asses in a paper or something somewhere. And it was this woman who said something like I work for the yearbook. Could I take a photo of you guys or something like that? And there was another person. I don't remember. It might have even been the same person. But someone with a camera or something said, "Can we just say you won the costume contest?" And to both of those, I just said, "Oh yeah, okay," because I want to be in the yearbook dressed as Gru, and I want to be the winner of the costume contest. So we were both. The yearbook obviously has not come out yet. I was not planning on buying a copy beforehand. No offense to the yearbook, but I haven't bought one before, and I wasn't about to start. But now I kind of have to, and now I have to directly promote it to people because you want to see a photo of Gru in the yearbook. Who doesn't? Of a really badly dressed Gru in the yearbook. Who doesn't? So we were in the yearbook apparently, we will be in the yearbook, and we won the costume contest. And they said they were going to put us on the SEB Instagram, which I already kind of knew because that's how I saw the previous winner of the costume contest. And that's got to be one of the proudest moments, unironically, of my career here at WSU, as my student career at WSU, because, getting to be in the yearbook for something, winning a costume contest already, that's pretty big for costumes that maybe aren't the most technically accurate. And then also getting to be, the only ones there who dress for the costume contest, at least that I saw. That's a pretty big honor, at least in my opinion. So we got our photo, and it was kind of funny because if you look at everyone in the photo, everyone looked kind of different because they did put it on the SEB Instagram. I looked really, if you look at my face, and I know we don't have a photo here, so I can't really show you, but just for reference, in case you were to see it, I look like I'm trying to hold back a fart as hard as I can. I don't even know why I look like that. In my mind, I thought I looked pretty stone-faced and looking just like into I was trying to give off a threatening look because Gru's a former villain, he's probably killed people. I was trying to look as threatening as I could, but I looked pretty happy, but I'm happy about that. Jack was holding his fist up with a banana in it because he brought a banana as a prop, I guess, which was pretty smart on his end because when I first saw that guy in the banana suit as the winner, I didn't really even get the logic as to why at all. But then I realized, oh yeah, the minions like bananas or something, so that's the idea. Mikey looked in his face like he regretted every action that brought him to meet us, which, to a normal person is a fair reaction. And Doug looked pretty happy. He looked like he was like stoned or something, which he was not. But that was a beautiful photo. And they refer to us as Gru and his minions, which is what I like. I'm the top dog here. I'm the one giving the orders to the minions to steal the moon or whatever he does. So we get into the movie. We at first I was a little bit worried I wouldn't be able to get in because one of the requirements was you had to have this Involve app, or you had to pay $5, something like that. And the Involve app was having problems with me. I wasn't able to get it. I don't know. I couldn't find the movies showing, and it was probably partially because we were like just past 7 at that point, if I really had to guess. So they wasn't showing up when I was looking up future events or past events or anything like that. So that was a bit annoying, but whatever. Eventually I was able to pull it up and show, I didn't actually pull it up. I had to show my ID or something like that to prove I was a student, which, I guess just by what I was doing, it should have been obvious enough I was a student because no one outside, me would ever do something, this stupid. So we go into the movie, and it's a pretty packed theater, actually. There was a lot of people there. At least I thought it was, which partially I was excited about because we have an even larger audience for our antics. But part of me was a little bit depressed that a Despicable Me movie would have so many people, probably unironically, going to see it. And also we did get our tote bag, but we didn't really look that closely into it yet because unfortunately it was, not unfortunately, this is a good thing, but the theater was pretty dark. And by the time we sat down, the logo was just coming. We just made it in time. I mean, otherwise we would have missed the first 2 minutes of Despicable Me 4, and that would have just been unacceptable. There's no way you could have been able to follow the plot from that point. But we sat down, and we looked through the tote bag as best we could, at least in the scenario we were under, because you can't turn on a flashlight in there, despite how funny that would have been. But from what I could feel, there felt to be like a book or a poster or something like that, and a lot of candy, which, that's cool. That's really, that's the best thing we could have probably hoped for in that, unless for like $1 million or something. and there was a can of something, and I was hoping it was beer because what I could make out was I couldn't see the logo completely. And that was because when we were first meeting up at Jack's house to kind of prepare for this night of wonder, I thought it would be a great idea to take a beer from the fridge or something and put it in try to sneak it in somehow as best I could, and drink it during the. Maybe I shouldn't admit to that. I don't know. But here's the thing: I didn't do that. I'm just saying I didn't do that, so I didn't break any rules here. But I thought it would have been a really funny idea to try to get one in there and kind of take it out during the movie and enjoy. I wasn't even thinking about doing it as a stunt or something or trying to be funny. I just thought, if I'm going to go see the Despicable Me movie, because the funniest part of the whole thing is past already by the time we get in because our costumes have been shown to everyone. If I'm going to go see the Despicable Me movie, I might as well, have a beer and maybe get a little toasty. But unfortunately, that didn't happen because we kind of thought about that wouldn't be the best idea. Although also I thought it would be funny because maybe I would get kicked out. And that would be funny on its own to see the guy dressed as Gru the one guy dressed as Gru getting kicked out of the movie. Come on, that'd be awesome. Yeah, you have to admit to that. But ultimately, I didn't do it, I'm not a freak job or whatever who would do that. But I was hoping that whatever was in there was beer because we're all over 21. We can drink, we are legally allowed to drink. But unfortunately, it was like a soda or something, which I just gave to Doug because I don't care. If it was beer, it would have been mine. But now, unfortunately, it wasn't. But I can say from how the audience was locked into the movie, it felt like if I could have drank in there and no one would have noticed. Maybe I shouldn't admit to that because I don't think I'm ever getting into a movie at the school again. But just for the record, I wouldn't do it. I would have just done it for that movie because it feels right. But I ended up not for this time. But again, I never will. I don't want to lose my right to ever see a movie here, so I won't. But anyway, so the movie plays. The audience laughs a concerning amount of times, in my opinion, as in more than once. It's stuff that's not funny. Although we were all, when I say we were going to commit some antics in there, nothing too bad or anything. We just kind of, we cheer when the title comes up, laugh at the stupid parts, whisper back and forth during so no one can, hear us. Because you kind of have to make some entertainment for yourself if you're going to watch a Despicable Me movie. And by the end, of course, start standing up I was hoping to start a standing ovation by standing up and clapping, but I guess people will clap like the director's there to see the movie, but they won't stand for some reason to show their respect for the movie. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but I don't know. What do I know? I guess. So we see the movie. And we go to leave, and it's pretty much quiet right on that. I mean, I'm trying not to yell as much to people to stay in school because it's 8:30 at this point. It's dark outside. We're not, it's not a great environment to see a bunch of guys with face paint on and start yelling at you, if you know what I'm saying. But we did look into the tote bag a bit more, and it was easier to see even though, it was dark outside with all the lights and stuff. And we get some nice stuff. We got a poster of the movie. And I'll talk about the movie in a minute once I'm done with, all this, the backstory. We got a poster of the movie, some candy and stuff, and a shirt for SEB, which was pretty wrinkled at that point, which was unfortunate. I mean, it was just a shirt that said SEB, so it wasn't amazing or anything, but would have been nice if maybe it was ironed or something before. Although probably being in the bag the whole time was the real reason. So I don't know, maybe the way we shifted stuff or whatever, maybe that caused it more than anything. But we did get some nice stuff. And we filmed a video right after being inside the movie that I'm going to play because, it's pretty fun. It's only a few seconds long. And Jack's the guy who I've mentioned a few times. I mean, you've already heard his voice in the intro right at the beginning, but Jack's the guy talking throughout most of it, so if you want to hear that. So this is the immediate reaction after seeing the movie in case you wanted to hear it.
Just came back from Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Look at, we won the costume
Yo,
contest. And that's Despicable Gru right there.
Yo, vote no on Prop 120. Yeah, there you go. So that's the immediate response from the movie. It sounds pretty positive, you know what I mean? We had a great time with that. So we got back and hung the poster at Jack's place, and I thought that was, a good idea partially because the most people who were involved in this whole thing live there anyway. But we all signed it. I signed it with vote no on Prop 121 again because I'm really trying to make sure it doesn't pass, if you know what I mean. And that was basically the end of that. Although I will say before getting into the movie itself about what I thought of that, which if you couldn't tell already, not all that great. I will say, to kind of open on something a bit positive about it, or about this whole experience, I did want to say that the poster itself, it did fit really well where we put it. It was it seemed to like kind of match. I thought it was a great place where we put it. It matched the tonal and the color of the wall nicely, or complemented the color of the wall nicely. You know, it was great. I think that was a genius job where we put it. So I want to say that poster looks really nice there. It was probably the best thing to come out of the movie. So yeah, and I also want to say I did get a good idea out of this whole experience, which is that I want to do a segment on the show where I try to convince people to vote for a made up proposition. Like, if anyone's listening, I guess if they see me do this at any point, or anyone do this, this is where the idea came from. It would be a great idea to set up like a booth on Glen Terrell Mall or something that says like, I'm against Proposition 121, you know, change my mind. And then we have to have people argue against a proposition or for a proposition. It doesn't even exist. I don't know. I think that'd be fun. But I'm gonna have to think about that some more, you know, how that would even work. But you know, maybe it would be hard because people are less inclined to argue for a proposition than like a candidate. You know, if we put up a sign that was like for a certain candidate or against a certain candidate, you know, maybe this is an assumption, but I think that would get more traction than an unnamed Proposition 121. But you know, I guess we're gonna have to find out once we actually do that. We'll obviously play it on the show, so we'll find out then. But yeah, so we saw the movie and it was. I'll start off with something positive. You know, I'll start off on a positive note. If you're like a kid, then you would probably enjoy the movie. I mean, maybe that's just to go without saying. And maybe I won't critique it super hard because if you're a kid, you'll have fun with it. But I think most like normal people would be kind of disappointed by it, you know, or maybe not disappointed by it, but not happy with it, because the main thing with it is that it really just had no reason to exist, if I just have to be honest here. And I never saw this third Despicable Me. Whatever happened in that one was not important enough to where you had to see that one either, I don't think, because, you know, I never saw the third one. I got through this movie, okay? But so I assume the third one probably had the same problem. But the fourth movie, the biggest problem is just it, and I'm going to start spoiling the movie in case anyone actually cares about that. I imagine they don't. But the movie begins and ends on the exact same note. And before I go into details about that, I'm going to give you 5 seconds to leave if you genuinely have a problem with that. With me, you know, just telling you what happens. All right, you had enough time. So the problem with the movie is that it begins with Gru and his family, and they have like a baby now, which I mentioned was the only really thing that seemed to make the movie like have a point at all when I saw the trailer. They have a baby now. And by the end, it's the exact same setup. They live in the same house. You know, no one who we knew in the previous movies like died or anything. There was never any serious consequence or anything. It just felt like it didn't need to exist. Felt honestly too short, if anything, because the movie's about an hour and a half long. And really, I mean, it does this thing where by the time the third act is approaching, I thought we were only like halfway through the first act or something like that. I thought way more was going to happen in this movie that just didn't. Because kind of the plot of this movie is that the easiest way to put it is just Gru and his family go into witness protection. And that's the whole movie. That they wrote a whole movie about that. Because some villain who we haven't seen in the previous movies, who they just made up for this movie, played by Will Ferrell, who I mentioned was going to be in this movie from the first time I talked about it. This weird like cockroach guy is trying to kill them for, you know, whatever, for screwing him in the past. And that's the whole movie. And there's pretty much no like character development or nothing like changes from the beginning of the movie. It's basically just Gru goes into witness protection and they just try to do a bunch of jokes with it or whatever. The thing is they had these plots set up where you think it's going to be the family, Gru and his wife and his daughters and all that, are going to have a hard time fitting into this new neighborhood they move into. And it's going to be about them, like, they all have these problems in the movie. As in, like, one of them doesn't, like, fit in at school. I don't know their names. And, you know, I don't... you shouldn't know their names either. But one of them has a hard time fitting in at school. And one or two of them are in, like, karate class or something. And are, like, you know, doing badly at that because they're actually doing well at that. And the teacher is, like, a jerk and doesn't like them or whatever. and Gru's wife is like has a job as like a hairdresser or something and completely fails at it. And you think they're gonna do this thing where by the end of the movie they're all gonna learn to adapt to their surroundings and take something from this, but no, they just put those in there. They set all these plots up, and then none of them are followed up on like at all. All of them the characters just kind of end where they started. It seems like, and the way they resolve all these plots is they just go back to the old neighborhood when the bad guy is defeated. So yeah, that was a good way to spend an hour and a half. And when I say it should have been longer, it's because if it was longer, maybe they would have had time to like I don't know at least finish what they started with those plots and not freaking throw them out in the air and do nothing with them. If it was longer than an hour and a half, and sitting through a Despicable Me movie that's an hour and a half already is kind of a chore. So maybe that's why. Maybe because they realized that it was going to be hard to sit through an hour and a half or 2 hours of Despicable Me 4. But on top of that, there's stuff that they could have just cut out and it wouldn't make a difference. Like the whole plot with the Minions is that they all go into this building or something that's owned by like I don't know the good guy. Like if you know the names of any of this stuff in the lore, I mean, first of all, what are you doing knowing Despicable Me and Minions lore? But on top of that, it's just like it doesn't matter. Who cares? The spy thing or whatever that Gru and his wife work for. The Minions all go into some building there, and like 5 of them are turned into superheroes. They try to explain it as how it has something to do with the plot, but it really doesn't. It's just because they thought Minions as like superheroes would be a fun thing. And maybe if this was like 10 years ago when people still cared really about superhero movies, maybe that would have been the case. But it's 2024 and it's not like there's 20 superhero movies coming out anymore. Or maybe there are, but just not as many people see them anymore. There's like 3 superhero movies that come out anymore that anyone cares about at all. So unfortunately, you kind of missed the boat on that one. I'm sorry, guys. But what they do is they turn like 5 of them into superheroes, and you think it would be something funny would happen there, but it's just basic slapstick, And I remember the older movies, like the first 2, because the second one's over 10 years old at this point, I think. Yeah, the first 2. I mean, they came out long enough ago that I was still in like the target age demographic for these movies. Those, I'm sure, are not good if I was to watch them again, but I'll say that I don't think they didn't waste nearly as much time as this one did, because that was probably, again, the biggest problem, that besides that it was just completely pointless, that it just wasted my time, I felt like. Because at least the stuff going on with the Minions, well, in the first movie, they're really not even used all that much, and when they are, it's relevant to the plot. And in the second movie, they had kind of like a subplot going on, but at least it was like something came of it. It's like something happened by the end of it because of that. The third movie I never saw, and I'm sure it was crap too. And then this movie, it's like it feels like they just put them in because they're like the most marketable and popular characters in these movies. And again, maybe that's why they used them at all past like the first movie. But I didn't feel like it was so transparent. Like that's the thing. In the older movies, they used them, or at least the second movie, they were used in it a lot more, partially because they seem to be the most popular and marketable characters from the first movie. But I feel like they kind of disguised that fact a little bit more as to why they were just so blatantly using them so much more, because they were so popular. In this movie, there's just not really that. I mean, I'm seeing the guy behind the curtain too much, I guess, if that makes sense. The illusion's not fooling me as to why they're in the movie so much, if that makes any sense at all. And they need to be hiding the blatant, just kind of disgusting corporate reason they're in the movie so much better for me to actually enjoy it. You need to make it look like there's a reason they're in the movie besides just, the money and the marketability. And in the second movie, I'm pretty sure the poster, in fact, I haven't seen it in so long, I'm just going to look it up. And this is, I know, a really minor thing to complain about. But if you look at the posters for the movies, the first one was like of something to do with Gru or whatever, because he was, the main character, and the movie was about him. So, and it was before the Minions were like a popular marketing thing. So I guess it made sense. But in the second movie, the Minions, when you look at the poster, they're not even really featured that prominently. I mean, they're on it, but still mostly focused on Gru. And by the third and the fourth one, it's just like the poster's completely like Minion crap. So that's already, kind of a bad sign, I feel like. And Despicable Me 4, it's just of one of like the superhero. I thought that was kind of funny because, again, in the third movie, I never saw it, but I would assume that probably the Minions were like used even more effectively than in this movie, because there's just basically no reason for them to be in this movie like at all. Or they could have just taken them out and it wouldn't have had any effect on the plot, because you kind of assume that what's going to happen is the Minion plot that seems like it has nothing to do with anything right now is going to come in at the end and be some big epic reveal and they're going to do something. But no, I mean, not really. So that was a complete waste of time. And I don't know. I guess it just was not well thought out, I guess is the easiest way to put it. The celebrity voices also, by the way, I thought it was kind of funny that Will Ferrell was in it. And then also Sofia Vergara and Stephen Colbert were in it. And that's basically the only ones I actually know by name. I mean, there are other people in the movie, like new characters, I mean, because Steve Carell is in the movie as Gru and all that. But I thought it was kind of funny because it seemed like, I mean, Will Ferrell, like, he did a good job at, like, doing, like, a voice or whatever. But then Sofia Vergara and Stephen Colbert is just so blatantly them because they're just speaking as themselves. And that's a whole nother discussion of, like, you know, the fact that there's so many, voice acting is kind of barely a thing anymore. I mean, maybe that's not a nice thing to say to voice act, but it seems just no one wants to hire voice actors for anything anymore. And just all people want is just big name actors who are going to bring in $100 billion, because that's what it is. So they felt really kind of pointlessly put in there. And Stephen Colbert, I guess I get because he's like has a late night show that makes $100 million an episode or whatever. But I mean, has Sofia Vergara really been anything that recently that it was necessary to cast her, who has this extremely distinct voice in this movie as like a character who has no point? I don't know. But moving on, I mean, I don't know. The movie, I basically just spent like 20 minutes trashing the movie, and it's not even the worst thing. It's not even the worst thing out of the franchise. Like, frankly, it's probably very much the same in terms of quality as the other, like any of the other movies, because none of them are really that good. And again, I haven't seen them in years. So, like, I think the last time I saw Despicable Me 1 or 2 was, like, before I was even in high school. So, I don't know. Maybe, like, to me, they were all pretty bad, I feel like. But, at least I'm sure they were. But I feel like that's the main thing. It felt like they had a reason to exist, at least. Like, the second movie even, like, furthered the story. This one, like, they might as well just cut out 3 and 4, and whatever one they make next can be Despicable Me 3, because 3 and 4, again, if I can understand Despicable Me 3, and it seems like nothing has changed from the status quo since the second movie, that one clearly had no reason to exist either. But I think that most people kind of saw that at the time, because, you know, they're doing the whole plot of Gru's long-lost twin brothers, which just kind of shows, like, okay, you have no more ideas for this franchise. You're just doing it because you need the money, which I don't know why. I mean, Illumination has like the Mario movie rights. They got probably one of the most profitable series in animation right now. So I don't know assuming they make a second one. So like, I don't know. I think that it's probably, I don't see why they need money, if they even do need a lot more money. But yeah, not, as I said, trying to be nice to it. It's not even like the worst thing ever. It was probably like a 5 out of 10, because I give it that much, because if this was like an adult movie, it would be a lot worse. But because it's for kids, like, whatever, kids are stupid. So at the end of the day, a kid would probably have fun with this movie and like the flashing colors and the stupid minions. Although it is kind of depressing that the movie, I think, is like the 3rd highest grossing movie of the year so far, because it shows, you know, I was kind of hoping at this point, you know, the whole Minion Despicable Me thing would kind of die down, but no, not really. I mean, it's not like, you know, 9 years ago when Minions was like, what, the highest grossing movie of the year besides Star Wars or something. So I guess it's not that bad, but it's still, you know, I was hoping by this point we kind of calm down the whole Minion Despicable Me thing, but no. Although I am kind of surprised they even still bother with the main Despicable Me movies, because does anyone watch these movies for like Gru and his family or what he's doing? Like, the people who unironically like these movies just watch for the minions, and the fact that they're the only characters on the posters anymore kind of proves that fact. So why do they even bother giving Gru and his family a plot at all anymore? I don't know. By Despicable Me 5, if they make that, which they definitely will, they're not going to try anymore. So anyway, I think it's also interesting to point out that a Minions 3 is going to come out, in case you were wondering. 2027, apparently, judging by Wikipedia, which not always the best source, but at the same time, you know, it is what's going on here. So I think, you know, I just mentioned that because, you know, look forward to, set your calendars for June 30th, 2027, if we're all still there by then, because you don't want to miss that one, Minions 3. And Despicable Me 5 will probably come out soon after that, and it's going to be about, I don't know, the Minions getting an oil change on Gru's car or something. and that's going to be the whole movie. Because, hey, I mean, think of it. Is it really that much more, is it that much more of a step down in terms of relevance to anything happening as this movie was? I don't think so. So, look out for that one. That's going to be fun. So, moving on, we'll get off of Despicable Me now. It's a bit pointless to just keep going, especially because I don't want to keep saying despicable over and over. It's a hard word to say, especially when you're kind of talking fast. So, we'll move on. I think we'll hit probably 2 more subjects and then we'll call it a day. I mean, especially because we're well past the halfway point of the show at this point. So I wanted to talk a little bit about something I only found out about recently. I was directed to, and this is Quick Light. And if you don't know what that is, then, well, I'm sorry that I'm about to probably ruin your day or something. But there's a website now called Quick Light, and I don't mean Quick Light like quick fast. I mean CWC Light. Because we're talking Chris Chan stuff now. We've gone to that level now. I don't know if I've talked about Chris Chan before on the show, but in case you don't know who Chris Chan is, Jesus Christine Weston Chandler Sonichu Prime is an epic internet figure who writes the amazing Sonichu web comics and has gone on and on about looking for a boyfriend-free girl. And and also she went to jail for having an incestuous relationship with her mother. So anyway, so that's pretty interesting to look at all that. I guess you can decide which one of those is like the worst thing. But moving on, there's an official website now for Chris Chan, which I thought was a bit interesting because I don't really know how to make a website personally because I'm just stupid. And I would never learn how. But I thought it was kind of funny to find that it's the domain is officialsonichu.com, but the website name is Quick Light. I don't really know what Quick Light. I'm assuming light as in light, the light of God or Jesus, because also she credits herself as Jesus Christine Weston Chandler Sonichu Prime. So like the holy light of like Jesus Christ. I don't really know. Something like that. And I thought at first when I saw Quick Light was the name, I didn't see how the spelling was at first, so I thought it was CWCLITE, like, made me think of like a soft drink or something. Like, isn't that a thing like Dr. Pepper Light or Pepsi Light? I don't know why I went to Dr. Pepper first, but isn't that a thing? But looking at the website, it's kind of main reason it was memorable to me was because Chris Chan, and by the way, just to say, because there's a lot of confusion about that, I'm using she, her pronouns for her, because the thing is, at least recently she went by, but I believe now she just uses any pronouns because she said she's the reincarnation of Jesus. So just use whatever you want, I guess. But this Chris Chan stuff is kind of interesting, if you want to know a little bit about it, because this website seems to be a one-stop shop for art, Sonichu medallions, blogs, CDs. Like it's, I mean, I'm just telling you, there's a lot of stuff here to really, get your I don't know, get ready to buy, I guess is the point, because that's kind of the main thing. It's mostly about buying stuff. So first of all, I wanted to talk a little bit about. Oh yeah, I kind of said this, but I didn't follow through with it because I'm lazy. I'm forgetful here, which is that the reason this website was interesting to me is because there have been other like Chris Chan made websites before, but they kind of always looked like they were made in like one of the like they came from 2003 or something, to where they were like the old like 4:3. I don't even think that's the right dimensions, but the old website aspect ratio of like 4:3 or whatever. There was no like moving parts to the page. They were all like static images until you like clicked links or whatever. But this one actually looks pretty professionally made. Like, I don't know, I think the White House should look into whoever made this website, because it has this really cool trippy thing where the welcome banner, like when you scroll down, it like changes colors, like what are the names of it? Like not like a lava lamp, because that has like the little like, well, lava balls or whatever that are like changing the color. But like I don't know if anyone's gonna know what I'm talking about. When you look at like a jukebox or whatever, and like it's like a rainbow to where like it gradually changes from like blue to green to yellow to orange to red or anything like that. So it's like, yeah, if I was to make a website, I gotta contract whoever made this, because for those who are into like, I don't know, Chris Chan lore or whatever, there's a rumor that it was made by this group Prater. I'm probably saying that wrong, and that's probably I don't know who made it, but it was probably made by someone outside of Chris Chan's control, just because, or Chris Chan, outside of just Chris Chan themselves, because it looks pretty professionally done. So the banner is of it says Quick Light, and it shows Chris Chan with like her arms like spread open with the galaxy behind her, and that's pretty cool, you know. Looks really real. I mean, looks real. So from what's on the website right now, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, because it's a pretty interesting website. The first thing you can look at is buying the Sonichu medallions. And for those who don't know, that Sonichu medallions, since 2000 actually, 2001 maybe, Chris Chan has worn a Sonichu medallion, and it's supposed to like distinguish her as a person, to like, you know, this is the official Chris Chan. And yeah, I mean, I bet it kind of does distinguish her. And you can buy your own now. Well, you could have for a while, for like 10 years, this has been a possibility. But this is the official one-stop shop to get them. That's not eBay or anything like that, which is where, you know, they used to be. Now, I'm not trying to be too harsh here, but I kind of have to be. There are 3 medallions available, or at least 3 different options it shows here, which is, it says the official Christ Chan Sonichu medallion for $40, which, okay, is, you know, reasonable, I guess. I don't know, with like inflation or whatever. But it's kind of crazy because it looks nothing like the real Chris Chan Sonichu medallions. If you've ever seen those before, those just have a look to them. You know when you're looking at them, you're looking at the real thing. And this one, to be fair, is probably better quality, but it just does not look like the real thing at all. Like, if I was wearing that, it would just make me look like an idiot. Like, if I'm going to wear a Sonichu medallion, I want to look like an official. I want to wear a good, like, I don't want to wear one that's going to make me look stupid, you know, when I'm walking around in public wearing it. So, like, if I'm going to be specific here, the, like, Pikachu feeler thingies, that's not at all what they're called. I just call them the feelers because that sounds funny. On Sonichu's head are too, like, rounded at the end and too, like, thick looking, too stumpy. The face looks too, like, sad, like smiling out of sadness, you know. The red balls on his cheeks are too, like, pronounced. He doesn't have enough of those, like, tough thingies on his face. It just looks, again, it probably looks better. I just mean it looks nothing like the real one. Now, the real one, the Sonichu Megastone medallion, handmade by Quick, which, by the way, I keep saying, in case you don't know, that's Christine Weston Chandler, the, you know, initials there. So I keep just saying Quick, like everyone knows what I'm talking about. But, I mean, if you're still listening at this point, you probably know what I'm talking about, at least a little bit. But that one looks a lot more like the real one. And, you know, looks a lot thinner and like it's going to break easier. The eyes are too pointed, like triangles at the top, you know. The feelers they go out too far. Like, it looks bad, but it looks perfect. And I was thinking, you know, that would be a fun thing to buy because, you know, who wouldn't want to own something like that? It's $100, bro. $100 for that. I'm not spending $100 on a Sonichu medallion. And it was $110. It's at a sale right now. And it's probably, I mean, if you're in another country, if you're going to get one, it's going to be even more than that in a place where, like, the currency is worth less than $1 or whatever. So $100 for a Sonichu medallion, bro, I don't have that kind of money to spend on that. I mean, I wish I did because it looks awesome, but, like, $100, no, I'm sorry, bro. And the thing is, when you click on, in fact, I haven't really looked at it that closely, so let's take a look here. If you actually look at the back of it, has like what looks like a knob. There's a knob on the back of the Sonichu medallions to put, like, rings and stuff. There's a certificate of authenticity, which, you know, I guess that kind of, you should display that somewhere because, you know, it's going to prove that, yes, the real one, you know, because if you're going to get one of these, you don't want one of the fake ones. You want one of the real ones, especially if you're going to spend $100 on it. It has a signature on the back, which is pretty cool. And I think, the paint job on it, I mean, to be fair, it looks pretty sharp, you know. So I guess there are some positives to it, but $100, bro. I'm sorry, but I keep going on about that because that just seems ridiculous. The last time I looked at the prices, I think it was like $80 because back when Chris Chan was in prison, because, you know, that saga lasted about like a year and a half, 2 years. They were still selling that. I think it was Prater again, unless I'm mistaken. We're selling them from like some sort of Chris Chan like store or something, and they were apparently all made before Chris Chan went to jail. And so if they were worth $100 then, I probably would have understood because, you know, hypothetically, we didn't know Chris Chan was going to get out then, so maybe this is your only chance. You know, you got to buy them while you can. And I thought about it for a while, but especially because when you look at them, they had like the look to them where Chris Chan, you know, Chris Chan made them. So because of that, you look at them and you think, oh, okay, well, this is the real thing. And I think they were like between $50 to $80. And that would seem like a steal back then because you don't know if you're going to get another chance to buy one. So I don't know. I'm wishing I just bought one then. That would have been a good investment, surely. And then also there's this other Sonichu medallion, which is also handmade by Chris Chan. And this one doesn't have, and this one is $20 cheaper because it doesn't have the knob for the ring. And now that I'm looking at it, I think maybe that was like a rock, like a stone. So I guess, you know, it was like kind of a nice looking stone. So maybe that's worth extra $20. But I don't know, I think I'd rather just get it without the stone and just get a nice Sonichu medallion. $80 I feel like is still too much, but whatever. I mean, and again, it's on sale too, so it's $85 originally. So I don't know, the sale with that, maybe it's a worthy price to you. I'm thinking about, well, should I get one for the show? Maybe I should get one for the show and like unbox. That would be pretty cool. But that's, you know, if I get it, I'm gonna have to see what happens with that. But anyway, then going down on the website away from, you know, buying the medallions, because there's some other stuff there. There's the recent happenings in blog, which is just, you know, seems kind of like almost like a forum. It seems like, if I'm not mistaken, where Chris Chan put like a few. They seem like paragraphs, and that's like the blog about just whatever. So some of them, I'm not gonna read any. That would be a whole different, you know, segment. But there's Jesus Christ Chan Sonichu Prime, Sonichus, Rose Shoes, and more, and rules on comments. And I'm assuming that, at first I thought that Jesus Christ Chan Sonichu Prime was the first one because it has 312 comments, whereas the one with the least amount of comments is 22. And so I figured when people first found this website, they were probably trashing it, commenting whatever they could, whenever they could, and that's why it has 312. Actually, no, not really. This is the most recent one. And the comments, I thought at first there would be some moderation for the comments, but just to read a few, I thought I'd just read a few. I'm not going to read all of them. There's one that says, begging your pardon, miss, but nice rack, and it's from Black Sonichu. And I'm not going to read the names of people leaving comments mostly because, you know, maybe it's like private information. But I bring that up because that is a reference to a Sonichu thing that Black Sonichu says. So that's kind of interesting. And that's a funny comment. And it was the most recent comment as of right now from what I see. And then some of them say, do you F with JPEG Mafia? And I just killed my whole family. So the comments, and also there are comments that are, you know, are just kind of, you know, bringing up what she did, like saying stuff like it's only incest if you get caught. So, and also one other one, Ted Bundy left a comment, and he said, hey Chris, thanks for sticking up for me and declaring me innocent. You're right, I was framed and I'm also a Sonichu living in C197. Can't wait for the merge to finish so I can get revenge on the people who framed me. Because that's another Chris Chan reference. Ted Bundy is an oddly important character in some Chris Chan related stuff. So, you know, that's kind of fun. The comments are kind of mixed with like kind of funny like memes and jokes and stuff like that. And, you know, very brutal comments that are just saying like, you know, you committed incest or you should be in jail. And I'm not saying none of that's wrong or whatever. I'm just saying that's the mix you're going to find. But anyway, moving on from the blog, because I'm not going to read all the recent happenings of the blog. Although I may at some point, you know, when it gets updated again, if it gets updated again, I'll take a look. It's not really completely necessary, but, you know, maybe I'll do it. But some other things that I noticed that I wanted to mention here is that there are some website exclusives because the medallions are also listed on Etsy, from my understanding, as well as some other stuff. So there's there's some CDs that have been put on there, and I thought that was kind of funny because they're, as it's described, music CDs burned from 2000s to 2010s. So basically past few decades except this one. And I'm not going to look through all of them, but there's 21 of these like whatever you want to call it, like I think there's close to 21 CDs or something like that, maybe a little bit over. And I can understand selling CDs that are like, you know, original Chris Chan related CDs, like Christian and the Hedgehog Boys and stuff. But there's more than that. There's the first thing that comes up is an $85 Backstreet 3-in-1 original CD burned and decorated by JCWCSP. And that's apparently, it's like a Backstreet Boys compilation CD that she like decorated. And by that, I think it just has her initials on it. Yep, that seems to be it. And just reading off what it says, the description, so you kind of get an idea. Years ago, Burger King had sold 3 CDs featuring songs from the Backstreet Boys. The disc should have all of the tracks from the 3 CDs, but checking online through Google, that may or may not have been the case. There may have been repeated tracks between the discs which would have been omitted. I also had the VHS. I may still have it, but that's to be confirmed. Includes personally made disc and authenticity certificate. Case may be cracked or discolored. Disc may occasionally skip/pause. Most of this collection were made around the late 90s, early to mid 2000s. So a good description of, a Backstreet Boys CD. Charging $85 for that, I think maybe is a bit overkill. I mean, I could get one medallion and like a 14th of another medallion for that. Of the cheapest, like authentic medallion. I could get two and one. I'm trying to do math really fast in my head and it's completely failing. 2 1/8 of a crappy, like not really official official medallion, but not made by Christian medallion. I could get any of that stuff. And also, there's some other things that are worth noting. Are a few of the other CDs are Chipmunk's Christmas, Destiny's Child, and Great Moments of Opera. So those are on the end of, from I believe, just CDs that Christian has owned before, which I'm wondering maybe that's a good idea to just sell off CDs you don't really want, even if you had nothing to do with them, just to make some shelf space or whatever. So I don't know, maybe it's a good idea to do it like that. Especially if you want the Judy Garland Christmas album, who else should you buy it from? And for $85. But there's also some other things I thought I'd mention. There was this is not an official Christian album, but there's a Linda Ronstadt, I'm probably saying that wrong, en español is how they put it, which is like, I don't think I need to explain what that is. But it's charged for $100, and presumably just by looking at it's because the decorations seem a lot more, I guess I'd say, elaborate than the other CD, because this one, the CD is decorated with a drawing of Sonichu and Roachu and a little Sonichu head and all that. So there was a little bit more thought put into this decoration, I feel like. And there's also an original cover that features them on it that seems to be, if I'm not mistaken, also in Spanish, in Espanol, for all the Spanish people listening to, or people who speak Spanish listening to the show, of Roachu in front of a K-Quick microphone and a curtain behind her, and Sonichu playing the trumpet. It looks pretty good. I don't know. So maybe it's worth the extra $15 that a normal CD would cost you just for that. There's also, if I'm just looking through now to see how many CDs are worth more money than, like $85. There are some original CDs on here that, are actually kind of interesting in terms of Christian history. There's Songs for Kelly, which is, for those who aren't familiar with the lore or whatever. And I guess, it's sold out from listening to it, so unfortunately it's no longer available. And I kind of understand because I believe this is oh no, it's not. I thought it was just one copy. So I thought at first it kind of made sense why it would cost a lot. But actually, it seems to have been a few copies made, but they're all sold out now, of songs for a classmate Christian went to high school with, who he was friends with, named Kelly. I don't remember if he had a crush on her or something. That's information's out there somewhere. But in case you want that CD, which, who wouldn't, then unfortunately it's too late because it's sold out. I'm sorry. So that's the most interesting with the CDs. But there's also some other interesting things you can buy when you look at the store in general. The comics you can buy, which if I end up buying anything from me, I'm going to buy one of those too and unbox it. All the Sonichu comics autographed, actually. That's pretty cool. Some mini Sonic totems, since something that Chris Chan used to own were Sonic totems, or one Sonic totem that looked pretty cool. It was actually kind of horrifying, but it's become a popular thing in Chris Chan lore. And now you can buy your own, mini version if that's something your sick mind would want. Although, who wouldn't, I guess? I don't know. And the cheapest thing for $15 is Temple of Sonichu's Sacred Rocks, which are, if I'm just going to read out the description here, these canvas sacks contain rocks and gravel handpicked by me from the old Sonichu Temple's driveway. Each bag also holds 1 to 2 crystals/rocks from my collection for maximum blessing, as well as miscellaneous polished rocks and gravel. Each includes a signed certificate from me confirming that they're real. The bag is filled with not just driveway or flower bed gravel, but with my love and power. So it is kind of interesting that it's basically, by your own admission, filled with flower bed gravel or driveway gravel, but also some crystals, which is pretty sharp, I think. And it's for $15. So I mean, the next show I do, maybe I'll have some of these. I don't know, but it kind of shows. I mean, there are some people who can just bottle anything and they can sell it and people will buy it. I mean, these are not sold out for my. Yep, they are not sold out. So maybe at the same time, this is not super. Maybe this isn't a super popular item. So when I say people will buy anything, maybe I'm wrong, but I would definitely buy them. So anyway, some of the miscellaneous items, if they're not labeled as, they're not labeled as, I think there was a section that was miscellaneous items. Oh, nope, they're not. So this must be the kind of what the miscellaneous items are. I'm just going to go through them all because, why not? There's Dating for Dummies 3rd edition 2011 autographed guide. So for anyone who's like looking for a date, I guess, and wants to read a book on it, here you go. And it's signed by Chris Chan, which I believe she owned because that was a big saga, looking for a boyfriend-free girl. So, that was something that this book maybe helped with her. I mean, considering that I think she currently says she's married to like fictional characters, that didn't really help that much with. But hey, I mean, if in case you want it, I don't see the problem. There's a big ticket item here that I've just seen that I'm gonna save for last because that's the number one thing. Where if I had just unlimited funds here, I would definitely buy. There's some My Little Pony figures that survived the house fire, since there was a house fire back in the day. And by back in the day, I mean 2014, where a lot of things were destroyed. There's a lot of lore that if you're not familiar with, it just sounds insane. But I'm telling you, it's a really kind of disturbing. It's a brownish. I don't know if it was always like that or from the fire. My Little Pony doll has parts of its face melted, parts of the ass melted. It just looks very beat up, and I guess maybe it's like a blessed object because it survived the house fire. So clearly it has a purpose to be on this planet. So I hope someone picks that up. It's $75, so it's very affordable. There's a Lego department store, which looks kind of and the Legos are all like melted and warped kind of, which looks kind of cool actually, to be honest, like something out of like Inception, for $85. So in case you're in the mood for owning that, I mean, that kind of looks like a cool like avant-garde piece of art. Who wouldn't want that? If again, you have $85 laying around. The melted floor of the melted third floor of the Lego high school that she built back in like 2014. Again, looks pretty cool. It's all like kind of warped and twisted, like a building from like Inception, or what maybe buildings look like when you're on acid. And it's for $200, which I guess is the main thing that kind of stopped me from buying it. $200. Well, first of all, it makes it the most expensive thing we've seen so far. And it seems a bit, it seemed like maybe a bit much for the third floor. I mean, for the entire high school, definitely. But the third floor, I don't know. I mean, like I said, it looks pretty cool. And actually, unlike some of the other burnt things, it seems like, like I know I said the last one could be some avant-garde art. This definitely looks like it could be, because you can tell what it's supposed to be, what it was before the fire, and then it's all like melted, melted to crap, and that just makes it, all the better to me. I think I'd like to display that if I had the funds. There's a melted werewolf on housetop from the 2014 house fire, which is another Lego thing. I won't go into it. It's basically more of the same. I guess it was a wolf at some point, a werewolf at some point, part of it. But it was from a Lego Monsters toy, but unfortunately it's all burnt, melted, not good, not in the best condition it could be. But moving right along from that, there's an Uncharted melted Nathan from the house fire. That looks pretty. It's like a Nathan Drake statue thing. I mean, it looks pretty funny because his his like ankle is like bent the other way from the fire. It's all melted like that. It looks pretty cool. I don't know. Besides that, honestly, it looks decent condition, I guess. I mean, except for like, again, like I guess this just is from the fire. When I was questioning if the My Little Pony toy was always that color from the fire, it turned that color. It looks like it's from the fire because the face is a little bit, seems a little bit gray, like the same color, and Nathan Drake isn't usually that color, so I guess that is what it is. But the final item I wanted to talk about, just scrolling through the store here, is that something that is still not sold out, and it shouldn't be surprising why. But man, if I could get my hands on that, I completely would. It's the original drawing of Sonic the Hedgehog by Chris Chan. It's like kind of like it's a drawing from, I believe she wrote on the back of it either around 1991. So when Sonic was like a new character and when she was 9 years old, and it looks not the well. I'll put it this way, it probably is better than stuff I could have drawn at 9. So I won't be like harsh on it or anything. But you can imagine it's like a 9-year-old's interpretation of Sonic. And what's funny about it is that if you remember in 2014, Christian, this is what it led to her first time in jail, if I'm not mistaken. She pepper sprayed a GameStop employee out of anger that Sonic's arms were changed to be blue from the original like tannish color. So yeah, there was a time when people cared about that, and because of that, there was a big hullabaloo over in this drawing. It looks pretty accurate to Sonic in terms of like a child's interpretation of Sonic, except his arms are blue there too. So that's, a little bit funny. I mean, I'm surprised more people haven't really pointed that out. But anyway, it is signed now for those who want to own it. I kind of wish you didn't write on the back and you could have just said it was from 1991 because I feel like that's going to kill its resale value. But the only problem is it's $1,000. Like, geez, bro, I can't like $1,000 for that. I'd love to, but I don't have $1,000 just sitting around waiting to be spent. I mean, I wish I could, but $1,000. And if I could get that, I would 100%. I'm split between what I want to do. If I wanted to face it in some way, like drawing the arms to be tan, or doing something with it, like I don't know, like putting it like going to some historical site and kind of just slipping it there. I don't know, or if I want to do that, or if I want to frame it and hang it somewhere. I mean, I'd love to hang it in the studio, frankly, but this isn't my studio. I just come here for the show and then I'm done. So I guess I don't have the right to do that. But I would love to. I would hang it here if I could, or hang it in my house or something. One of those two options, and I don't know which one. One of those two. But God, I would love to own that, but I just can't. And looking around, you know what? I'm gonna try something that I didn't do yet. I'm just gonna goof around this website and just go to here we go. Let's see if I can increase the quantity at all to 3. Let's take 3. Buy with shop pay. And now I'm not even using my computer, so I'm gonna I really don't want to enter my email on here to do, but I don't know. I mean, it looks because I don't know what, like when you're on a computer that's not your main computer, you don't know if like they have some sort of like one click buy or one click buy option put in. So if I end up buying this thing, that would be a disaster. Although I would like to, but I just thought it was funny you can change the quantity, which I know when you move on it's gonna just say there's only 1, so you can't do that. But I would take 3. Can we get 3 out of this? But one of the main things that's striking with this drawing is that the paper quality, I think, in my opinion, is still pretty good. I mean, maybe I'm just easily impressed, but I always kind of imagine paper that's more than like 20 years old to be like yellowing and all that, even if it was like white, sheeted line, like white line paper. I always just imagine the paper just to be in horrible quality after just not even that many years. This paper is really in good quality. It could be hung in a art museum. I don't see the problem, but especially when it's from like 33 years ago now. Because I've seen paper from like the 80s or whatever, the 70s. This sounds really weird, like I'm just describing looking at different eras of paper, but it's not like I've set out to do it. But the paper quality is like damn good. I mean, it's on that alone, maybe it is worth $1,000. I don't know. And I will say $1,000 for this. Is it possibly worth that when you consider it's a piece of history? Yes, it is probably worth it. I'm just complaining because I'll never afford it. But it seems like no one's really quick to be buying that one, so I don't know. Maybe that's something. Maybe that's something where I'll save $1,000. But I'm thinking when I keep talking about it, I would love to somehow to be able to get some items. In fact, this is a prop. I'm already just planning it for the show by talking about it right now. I would love to get some of these items and unbox them for the show. I think that would be great. I don't know if that'll ever be able to happen, but if it could, that would be damn amazing. I mean, in fact, it could happen. It won't be this, but I'm thinking about the combination. Like, what would I get? It would have to be more than one thing, and that unfortunately means spending probably over $100. But it's worth it to me to own some of this, to have a funny segment opening it up. That would be fantastic. But I'll skim through the rest of the website pretty quick. Although I won't say for sure, we're probably not getting to the final segments. There's only about like 5 minutes left. I'm going to keep doing the show. But there's a fan art segment, which actually is mostly photos, which is photos of people wearing Sonichu medallions or with their Sonichu art. And then there's also below that the segment of, drawings, which, they look pretty good, actually, all the drawings I've seen so far. I wonder if I could get a shot at submitting something. I doubt it. But, maybe I could. And looking also, there's a contact page. Although I will say, I know, again, there's pretty much no one, I'm sure there's no one really listening right now. But if there is anyone who, I don't know, to the 6 people listening, I'm telling you, don't try to contact anyone involved. Don't try to get attention. I'm just looking at the website. I'm trying to look as objectively as I can because I just think it's interesting and kind of funny. But don't contact anyone. But there's a contact and submit page like most businesses where I believe it's like where you can put your name, your email, your phone number, all that. But it doesn't. From the looks of it, it also doesn't support image uploads. That's somewhere else, I guess. But I'm not gonna do it. It's not a good idea. So nobody ever do that. So just looking around, it's also you can make an account on here, which is I guess the way to buy stuff. That's kind of interesting. So I'll keep that in mind for when I do buy things. But anyways, I just thought I'd talk about this website. It is kind of sad to be honest, considering what Christiane did. It's been nearly a year since she came back to YouTube that it's kind of just allowed. She got her silver play button recently for her channel passing 100,000 subscribers, which I'm not surprised it passed that number considering all the news about her. I'm just sad that it's going to be going on when she committed a crime, multiple crimes actually. But who am I to say what's cool and what's wrong or what's what? I'm just observing here. I'm just a neutral observer, I guess. And looking, I'll say one other thing. I'll leave off on the website bit with this. At the very top, there's some quotes you can read where you kind of click the arrows and it goes to the next quote or the past quote or whatever. And so I thought I'd read some, just leave on a positive note about this whole thing. When in doubt, clear your mind and follow the default choice that is light and intuitive. Welcome to my store. That's a pretty profound one. Buy a medallion. All right, that's a pretty good one too. Stay on light-powered paths and choices. And then zap to the extreme. That's probably a good one to end on because I thought there were going to be more websites that were more quotes that were inspiring or something. I could have used as a senior quote in high school or something. But now, sometimes in life you're set up for disappointment, I guess. Well, moving right along then. That's about the end of the show. We're about out of time now. Nearly just a few minutes left before before I close things out. So I want to say thanks for listening. This is probably, I hope this will go down as the most boring episode because it's just me talking. Because within the next episode, we'll have at least one other person on the show. I'm already kind of planning for it. And it'll be more of a discussion. I think I did an okay job holding down the fort for now, but we'll see how things go next time. It was nice to kind of get back into doing the show. I'll leave also as I'm going to give a shameless plug here, which is that I do actually have one other show on KZUU actually, which is kind of similar to the format of my old show because there's a lot more music being played, called Broken Record, and that plays from Tuesday from 2 to 4. So if you want to listen to that, a lot of it's playing a lot more indie music or music that has less people, it's not, the Beatles or the Rolling Stones, whatever, a lot more underground music. So if you want to hear that, then you can tune in then. Next week on the show, I don't really have a lot of plan, except for I know that if Jack will be on the show. If I'm not making any. Whenever I commit to something, or whenever I say if something's happening, don't look at it as a commitment because, frankly, I'm just saying what I think is gonna. I could not say for sure yet, but if I'm not mistaken, Jack will be on the show, so you guys will get to finally see him. Cool guy, And thanks a lot. I thank him again for his help in making this the beautiful intro that he did. He did a great job with that, and he'll be on the show for this episode. I may have one other person who I'm kind of thinking about as a guest, because if Jack's on the show, I believe he's going to be a more permanent presence. He'll be probably on the majority of episodes, and so I want to say if that comes to be, then we'll be talking with him, probably introducing him a bit, getting people to know him, I have no idea if that was grammatical or not, but whatever. And we're also going to be, I'm hoping, I just kind of got the idea now to possibly look around the Christian website again and possibly make some purchases, myself. And finally, also, we're going to be, if possible, I'm not promising anything, but on stuff I'm planning currently, I might be doing an interview segment with another guest on the show. So stay tuned for all of that. Thanks for listening. It was nice to be back. This is the Josiah Show. We're closing out the first episode of the new format. I guess that's how you want to introduce it. So thanks everybody for listening, and I'll be see you next week, and I will be seeing you this coming Tuesday if you want to listen to Broken Record, and we'll be seeing you next Thursday from 5 to 7. So thank you everyone for listening, and have a good rest of your night. Take care.